You are sitting in the dark, staring at a glowing screen, waiting for an explanation that is never going to come. You are paralyzed by the sudden, suffocating silence of someone you trusted. They walked away, they severed the cord without a single word of warning, and now you are trapped in a psychological purgatory. You are bleeding out on the battlefield, desperately waiting for the exact person who drove the blade into your back to hand you a bandage. You believe that if you just hear their reasons, if they just give you the final puzzle piece, the pain will stop. You believe you need closure to move forward, but closure is a fabricated concept invented by the weak to delay their own healing. It is a fairy tale you tell yourself because you are terrified of facing the void alone. In the brutal, unforgiving architecture of human nature, nobody owes you an explanation. Nobody owes you a neat, cinematic ending to your suffering. If you are sitting in the dark, waiting for someone else to release you from your mental prison, you have already surrendered your sovereignty. You have handed the keys to your nervous system to a ghost. It is time to wake up, and it is time to stop negotiating with your pain. You must realize that the silence you are so desperately trying to fill is the only answer you will ever need. You must learn to endure the unanswered questions, and forge your mind into an instrument of absolute, terrifying independence. The ancient Stoic architects understood the fatal flaw of human expectation. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire surrounded by endless treachery, political deceit, and sudden betrayals. He did not survive by demanding apologies from his assassins. The Stoic masters recognized that the external world is governed by chaotic, self-interested forces entirely outside of your jurisdiction. To expect a rational, satisfying explanation from an irrational, self-serving individual is an act of supreme psychological madness. The ancients knew that to demand the truth from a liar is to willingly drink poison while hoping for a cure. They constructed their mental citadels on the foundational law that your peace of mind cannot be contingent on the behavior, the apologies, or the confessions of external actors. If your internal stability requires the cooperation of another human being, you are not a master. You are a slave. Observe the modern rock bottom. You have been discarded. Perhaps it was a decade-long relationship that ended with a sterile, two-line text message, or perhaps it was a corporate partnership where you ground your physical health down to the bone for years, only to be erased from the organizational chart on a random Tuesday without a single second of eye contact. You are left standing in the wreckage, vibrating with an agonizing, desperate need to know the reasons why. Why was my loyalty punished, and why was my sacrifice entirely invisible to the people I trusted? You convince yourself that obtaining these answers is the crucial first step to your recovery. This is a biological hallucination. Your brain is craving the dopamine of resolution, but in reality, there is no explanation they could possibly offer that will satisfy your grief. If they tell you the truth, it will shatter you, and if they lie to you, it will insult you. You are chasing a mirage in a desert of complete disrespect. You must amputate this desperate pursuit of the final word. The brutal execution of your recovery begins the exact moment you accept that the disrespect is the closure. The betrayal is the answer, and the silence is the final period at the end of the sentence. You do not need their fabricated excuses to validate your reality. Do not ask for their perspective, because their perspective is deeply corrupted by cowardice. Take the knife out of your own back, look at the blood on the blade, and accept the absolute reality of the wound. You must conquer the urge to seek validation from the architect of your destruction. Build your foundation on the cold, hard concrete of their actions, and completely disregard the empty air of their missing words. Epictetus, a man who was born into actual physical slavery, taught that true freedom is an internal construct that no master can ever touch. He warned that if you require someone else to grant you peace, to validate your worth, or to release you from your anxiety, you voluntarily place the chains back onto your own wrists. The ancient philosophers viewed the act of begging for an audience as the ultimate degradation of the human spirit. To plead for an explanation from someone who has already demonstrated their willingness to destroy you is to offer your throat to the wolf. You are willingly descending from the throne of your own life to crawl in the dirt for crumbs of justification. A king does not ask the peasant why the harvest failed. A king demands absolute fortitude from himself and moves forward without looking back. Examine the pathetic reality of the modern beggar. You sit in your room, drafting multi-paragraph messages sent out into the cold digital void. You carefully construct your arguments, you lay out the chronological timeline of their betrayals, and you expose your bleeding heart, hoping that your sheer vulnerability will finally trigger their empathy and force them to explain themselves. But the predator reading your message does not feel empathy. They feel absolute, intoxicating power. Every desperate question you ask, every tear-stained voicemail you leave, is a neurochemical trophy for their ego. You are negotiating your worth with an entity that has already priced you at zero. They read your frantic demands for closure, and they smile in the dark. By demanding answers, you signal to them that they still dictate your emotional temperature, and you are feeding their toxic machinery with your own life force. You must cut the supply line. Drop the phone, step away from the keyboard, swallow your pride and endure the agonizing withdrawal of absolute silence. When every fiber of your nervous system is screaming at you to reach out, to demand the truth, to force a confrontation, you must lock yourself in the furnace of your own discipline and burn the desire to ash. Starve their ego. Deny them the psychological friction they desperately crave. By withholding your pursuit, you execute the ultimate power move. You flip the dynamic entirely. You leave them stranded in the uncomfortable reality of their own cowardice, while you reclaim the absolute dominion of your own mind. The Spartan ethos was built on the terrifying power of unspoken endurance. They did not write long, emotional treaties complaining about the unfairness of their enemies. They understood that words are cheap currency used by the weak to simulate action, while true, undeniable power is found in the ability to absorb a devastating blow, to feel the bones crack and the flesh tear, and to refuse to make a single sound. The ancients knew that your silence is a psychological weapon infinitely heavier than your loudest scream. When you are struck by betrayal, your immediate biological instinct is to generate massive noise. But when you master the art of the sovereign silence, you become an impenetrable force of nature that terrifies your enemies. You become an immovable object that refuses to shatter under pressure. The modern landscape is a massive psychological trap designed to make you weak. Society conditions you to express your truth, to seek out closure, and to clear the air, telling you that confrontation brings healing. This is a toxic lie designed to keep you emotionally reactive and permanently vulnerable to manipulation. When you encounter the betrayer again, or when you are forced to watch them thrive while you are rebuilding from the ashes, the biological urge to confront them will spike violently. You will want to walk across the room, demand the apology they owe you, and force them to look at the damage they caused. Do not take the bait. If you react, you prove that they still own real estate in your mind. If you explode, you validate their decision to leave. Forge a towering, monolithic wall of silence. Let them wonder how you survived the knife they left in your back. Let them suffocate in the terrifying realization that you do not need their permission to heal, and that your unbothered, thriving existence is the heaviest, most brutal counterattack you can possibly launch. Do not look at them, do not speak of them, and do not acknowledge their existence on this earth. When you treat their betrayal with absolute, freezing indifference, you instantly reduce their impact to zero. You become an impenetrable fortress. You do not just survive the silence, you weaponize it to destroy their relevance in your life. To become genuinely untouchable, you must master the ultimate internal alchemy known as amor fati, the love of your fate. You do not merely tolerate the betrayal, the ghosting, or the unanswered questions, you must actively desire them as the essential, brutal fuel required for your evolution. The Stoic does not ask why this happened to me, the Stoic states with absolute certainty that this happened for me. The universe did not deny you closure to torture you, it denied you closure to force you to build your own spine. Every unanswered question is a heavy weight added to the barbell of your mental endurance. The obstacle is not in the way, the obstacle is the way, and the pain is the necessary friction required to forge an unbreakable will. You lost the relationship, you lost the job, you lost the friendship, and you lost the investment. Good. The dead weight has been severed from your life, and the parasite has detached itself from your host body. The average, fragile mind will sit in the wreckage and dig through the trash, desperately looking for a reason why the building collapsed. But the sovereign mind does not waste time interrogating the rubble. You take the bricks that fell on your head, and you use them to construct a brand new empire. You recognize that the energy you were wasting trying to understand their toxic behavior is now entirely yours to possess. You take that massive, burning reservoir of unresolved pain, and you channel it directly into your own violent ascension. Step out into the dark. Walk forward without the answers, let the open wound heal in the freezing air, and let it turn into thick, unbreakable scar tissue. You do not need an apology to dominate your future, and you do not need their permission to be great. Execute your daily mission with absolute, relentless force. When you stop looking backward for the reasons you fell, you can finally focus all of your lethal kinetic energy on the summit ahead. You are the sole author of your reality. Take the pen out of their hands, and write the final chapter yourself without looking back. The next time you find yourself sitting in the dark, waiting for the explanation, waiting for the apology, and waiting for the bandage from the exact person who stabbed you, remember that you are your own healer. You are your own savior, and you do not need their words to validate your survival. Pick yourself up off the battlefield, leave the unanswered questions in the mud, and walk forward into the storm with absolute conviction. To continue forging this unbreakable mindset, and to bulletproof your nervous system against the chaos of the modern world, study the full curriculum in our Dark Psychology and Manipulation playlist displayed on your screen right now. The tools to build an empire of the mind are waiting for you there.